This is the Charles Bookwalter for Congress Digital Town Hall. Your chance to talk directly with Charles Bookwalter about the issues important to you. Jump into the comments and join the conversation. Now, without further ado, here's your host, congressional candidate for Indiana's 4th District, Charles Bookwalter.
Well, there's two reasons why you drink, Charles. You drink to celebrate and you drink to lick your wounds. Let's talk about Tuesday.
So what are you drinking for tonight?
I'm drinking to lick my wounds.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Tuesday sucked. The primary sucked.
Maybe by the end of this, it'll be in celebration. I don't know. Maybe we can turn that frown upside down.
we can only hope. So Tuesday night, election comes out. One of the lowest turnouts in Indiana history for the primary. A substantial turnout in Boone County, regardless of everything else. But the election was really disappointing in the fact that the turnout, and then number one on my book is the number of votes that were Democrats interfering in the primary. When we were door knocking, and especially that last week, there was a neighborhood here in, it was here in Zionsville. And it was behind the school, and we were knocking on doors, and we kept getting the same reaction. I'm not a Republican. Why are you knocking on my door? I'm not a Republican. And finally, one guy came out and said, why are you knocking on my door? Because the question I asked was, we have you on you're listed as a Republican who votes in the primary. Is that correct? And time again, we got no. I'm a Democrat. And it became abundantly clear that what was happening, because of what this one gentleman said, is that it's Democrats voting in the Republican primary to affect the outcome in the primary because Indiana has open primaries. How much of an effect do you think that had on this election towards your cause? I mean, in my book, I think that Jim Baird is much more favorable to the Democrats than you because he votes with them already.
Yeah.
So
if Democrats would just look around, they would see that they get everything they want. Republicans just give it to them. They just don't give it as quickly as they want them to give it. But we saw this throughout the whole campaign, right, Kramer? You were not going. We there were so many comments about this, about Democrats voting in the primary, and or a lot of the time they'd say I'm not a Democrat, and it's because they voted they pulled a Republican primary ballot. So. Right. So whether they admit to being one or not, they at some point in the last recently pulled a Republican primary ballot. So I think it does have an impact on it. You know, I think as you look further, and I haven't looked at all these in detail. You know, the day after the election, I actually left my phone and I never leave my phone. And there's no reason I didn't, for whatever reason I left it. So I didn't even have my phone for the first half of the day. So I wasn't following the election results and only started looking at them today. So I have not looked at all the results to look into the details of everything, but it appears there's about 30% or so of a conservative element that might be here in Indiana. It's disappointing we didn't, win our election, but I won precinct committeeman and delegate, and we won seats all over in different areas of good candidates.
Matt Commons is a great one. He just beat Sharon Nagel. Yeah,
that's a big one. Sandra Sixberry won Montgomery County Clerk. That's a big one too. And then commissioners in Jasper County and other places. And precinct committeeman here, just look at it like this. I was thinking about this earlier. 2 years ago, the GOP chair appointed 60% of the precinct committeemen. This year, they're probably not going to appoint any.
Right.
So maybe we didn't swing as far, but think about that. At least that is that's a major success. We picked up a lot of those seats. Those seats are no longer being appointed. They're being run for. So people actually have to engage. And so now we just, those of us that won, we keep moving forward in this political process and keep, hammering away and hammering down, but I haven't even looked at all the details to really kind of assess how weird these elections are. Think about it. John Piper, for example, pulled 8%. I mean, if he wasn't on the ballot, you got to think most of those would have come to us. We were almost 40% of the vote.
Yep.
What does that say? And the fact that someone can run and not do anything, both Congressman Baird and John Piper, and get that much of a vote is weird when you look at it. It's
well,
really
think about
weird.
it this way. Think about it this way. He didn't do anything, and so what you see is those are people who are going to vote for anybody but the incumbent, or Democrats involved in the system, right? They're just screwing with things because they don't. John's not. You can't find anything out about John Piper. He doesn't have a website. He doesn't have commercials. He doesn't have anything. And what's interesting about it is John Piper vowed to vote for you. He had your signs in his yard because he dropped out.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
The funny thing is, there were so many funny things about this election. It was so much fun. But and in the Hendricks County Forum, when I got my introduction, I went first, and he looked over. He said, "Wow, that was incredible. I'm going to vote for this guy."
Exactly.
That's when we first got his endorsement.
Well, I think it's interesting when you look at all the numbers, and now that the campaign is over, we can divulge what we were spending and where. The Bookwalter campaign was a grassroots campaign, meaning that it came, all the funding came from either you or the people around you, your supporters, and so on. And Jim Baird spent in total right at $1 million for this seat. To hold Charles Bookwalter back, he spent nearly $1 million to maintain a $174,000 a year job. Now, how do we get there?
Well, that's true, but we do have to parse that out. He did not spend that much in his campaign money.
That's what I'm going to explain is that
it took that much.
It took that much. And so the way that he did that is that if you remember, you didn't hear from Jim Baird for years. Nothing from Jim Baird. And then as soon as he had an opponent in the race, what did he do? He used the Frank mail privilege to be able to pound on a monthly basis, if not twice a month, Jim Baird down the throats of the 4th District. And it was all campaign material. In particular, one of them, let me grab one of these real quick. One of them specifically, if I had to go back and I was taking Jim Baird to court for the violation of the Frank mail privilege, this would be exhibit number 1.
The missing fact one, yeah.
This has nothing to do with the 4th District. This has to do with a campaign.
It is what it is, and it's disappointing. And that's what's concerning about this whole thing is it's so hard. $1 million, but probably only 200,000 of it came out of his campaign. The rest of it was probably through the Frank mail privilege.
Well, that's even worse.
I know it is. It absolutely is, and it just goes to show how difficult this is. That's why we can never give up. That's why you never quit. That's why you always drive forward, and you assess and you move forward, and you adjust and you assess and you move forward. Well,
the reason I bring all of that up is because it's important for people to understand the amount of money that was required to beat you. All of the efforts, and 70% of that, 80% of that was your money, folks. Those were taxpayer dollars utilized to campaign for Jim Baird. So are we upset that we lost? Yes, we're upset that we lost. What we're more upset about is how they used, nearly $800,000 of your money to campaign for Jim Baird through the Frank mail privilege. Now, that's a different subject, totally different. But then again, even if we count that out and look at the fact that Baird spent $200,000 of his own money in the last 2 weeks of that race to send out mailers and so on. That's what it cost to do a mailer, is about $100,000. So to get everybody, you're talking $200K. He spent $200,000 to maintain. Now, this is his own money. It's not your money now. He's spending his money. He spent $200,000 to keep a $174,000 a year job. Charles, I know what we raised, but let's look at media, because that's what I'm really focused on. There was a bunch of money that was used for print material and yada, 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 travel, whatever. Mm-hmm. But the core of what you spent on media pales in comparison to what the Baird campaign had to spend. And yours was somewhere in the ballparks of $30,000 is what we used for media. That's radio and TV, digital streaming, that kind of stuff. So
probably a little bit more than that, but yeah.
But that tells you $1 million or $200,000, depending on how you want to look at it, versus $30,000, $40,000.
$40K, yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it's like a Herculean effort, but that's why it's so hard to be. You need a lot of money when you do this.
You need a lot of money to let people know.
It's hard to determine to discern what is the most effective way of doing it. What I think is the party probably just has such good records and data because they've been able to they got the Frank mail privilege. They've got this way of figuring it all out, and they know where mail's going. Then I bet that it's a little easier for them to target as well. So they're probably a little bit more effective with targeting exactly who's going to go vote in the primary.
Well, they didn't, Charles, they didn't send those flyers out to primary voters. They sent those mailers out to every Republican.
Probably every Republican.
They sent them out to the entire district. So it wasn't just Republicans who got it. He serves the entire district, Republican and Democrat. So everybody in the district who votes got one of those mailers. And that's what's concerning, is that they spent this kind of money for this job and nothing's going to change. Nothing.
Well, I'll tell you that it doesn't, and it's not nice not having to talk about this now that the race is over, but it does feel like that nothing changed in this election, and we'll see, but it feels like the concerns that the conservatives have and that people have with the future of the country, nothing it looks like is going to change in 2024. And I'm concerned now, particularly with seeing how many people voted with Nikki Haley, just concerned with some of the responses we got on door knocking. I mean, I hope Republicans pull it out this year. I mean, I think it's going to be tighter than we think. It's going to be harder than we think. That's just my thoughts. That it's well. After seeing in Indiana did not impress me with the way I thought that we might get some more conservative leadership, more conservative people in office. Again, we got a few. Maybe that was what we needed, was just this really this foundational step, this foundational move.
After the election, Charles, we were in the drive home, and I was not pissed that we lost. I was fine with that. I was okay with losing. That you enter this process and you may lose. The problem that I had with it is the number of people, not just here in Indiana, but across the nation, who bitch and moan on a daily basis about how bad everything is, and then they go elect the same dudes who are causing the problems. It's almost sadistic.
Particularly in Indiana, when there was the biggest part of our message was the Republican primary is the election. So to think that only 20% of registered Republican voters just chose this election and determined who is going to be in these positions dealing with this amount of money and authority is really just tragic. So it's 20% of registered Republican voters.
Yep.
So that's not even all people, So,
well, that's like saying, really, "Hey, would you?"
It's such a small number. I'm sorry. I say that, and I'm going to start saying this a lot because I think we need to remind elected officials that they only got 20%. In Indiana, particularly in Indiana, the Republicans be like, "Look, let's just remember that you got 20% of registered. I know you're elected. Okay, well, great." But you did this. You did that with 1,500 votes out of a community of 50,000 people. All right. So don't act like
it's a mandate.
You got some kind of crazy mandate. Now that we see how it is, and we look at these numbers, and you see how few votes it takes to win some of these positions, that it's crazy. And so. You're right. So for people, conservatives, to sit around and bellyache and moan and then not go out and vote in a primary at these levels, and because we got about 30% of the vote, and I bet there's about that amount of conservative voters, but there's more than that out in the areas, and they're just not showing up and voting. And so you can sit around and complain all you want, but man, it is. It's going to take a major Herculean effort to take some of these seats back.
We have a comment here from your mother, which I think is interesting, and she's right. Lots changed. You assembled an incredible number of like-minded individuals in Indiana that will work in the future battles and races. Your thoughts?
That's why we're moving forward. That's why we drive on. Like, I won precinct committeeman and delegate. We've got responsibilities now. We're looking right now towards June to the convention, and I'm going to work to help get Micah Beckwith lieutenant governor. I'm going to work the best I can to work on that. Again, just a disappointing thing when you think about Mike Braun already choosing that lieutenant governor and not making inroads with the conservative wing of the Indiana Republican Party.
Well, why would he? He's not a conservative.
I know. It's so disappointing. They all throw that term around, conservative. They know that they speak the language, but they don't live it. And it's just so frustrating. Like all of Congressman Baird's literature at the end of this campaign, all about how conservative. It's just not true. And it's just not, and it's frustrating for them to use that language. But instead of actually doing real conservative things, which would be reaching out to Micah and saying, hey, I like what you're doing. And if the people, this is what the people want, I'm down with it. We can let a few lieutenant governors run for, like, I don't care. But we'll see. And I think we'll see how big the effort is. That's right now. That's what we're doing, is coming together and be like, hey, who do we have here? And who, where's this coming down to? And making sure everyone that one precinct committeeman now chooses their vice. You got 30 days to do that. Also to pay your Indiana convention delegate fees, the $150, because if you don't pay that in a certain time, you lose that spot. So making sure following through with all of that stuff, and then keep moving forward. I mean, there's so much work to do, and we're going to keep doing it. So I appreciate what she's saying. There's no question. This is never. We always knew this would take a few cycles. And we always said from the very beginning, if we don't win, but we're able to pull through some precinct committeeman and delegate and take some seats, then that's a win.
So on election night, you came in. This is one of the things I picked up on. Hopefully, this is a sign of good things. Is that you arrived about a half an hour after the results started coming out. You arrived to the wrap party, and you walked in. Within 5 minutes of walking in, we knew the results. The race had been called. So they did it within 45 minutes, an hour and 45 minutes of closing the polls. They had everything done. Do you think that looks good is that a good sign for this fall?
What do you mean?
Well, they had everything counted. The state was done. There was they're not still counting here in Indiana. We don't have any issues. So what they've done is they've proven that they can count all of the votes in one day. Mm-hmm. That we don't have to, and not just in one day, in a couple of hours. Yeah. Probably maybe half the voters. There might be another, but still, I know what you're saying. Yeah. So it would take them 2 times as long. That's an hour and a half. That's not much longer. No. So.
I mean, perhaps, I guess.
Well, here's one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight that I think is interesting is that most people look at just a moment behind them. They look back a couple of days, and their attitude and their demeanor and so on is based on what just happened in the last couple of days, and they don't look back. And Charles, I want to brag about what the campaign did way before I even joined. Is that when I came in, and I said this the other night, this campaign made it easy for what I do in a campaign. It was easy. There was no fighting. There was no infighting. There was no drama. There was no hiccups. The team worked. If we had gotten to D.C., we would have been dangerous because we were a well-oiled machine ready to make change instead of just taking money and handouts and showing up to shake babies and smack hands or whatever they say. Mm-hmm. Don't you feel it's well, I used to say it that way. You shake a baby and what is it? Is it you shake baby and kiss hands? That's what you kiss hands and shake babies. But is in your mind, looking back at what you've accomplished, have you done that in the last couple of days? So look back at what you did from the very beginning, from the moment that you said, yes, I'm going to do this, to now. I mean, you had some major accomplishments along the way. You've had hiccups along the way, but does it make you not want to be a part of the solution, or do you keep fighting?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad you had such a joyful experience working on the campaign, since you contributed so much of your time, your talent, and your treasure to the campaign. I'm glad it was a good experience because that's about all it was, which was a good experience, and it was a good learning experience for me. I hope it was for you as well. You know, there are a lot of things happen people don't even know about. I ruptured my MCL during the parade season last summer in jiu-jitsu. So that took me out for a week. So there were just things that I don't think you were on the campaign yet, Kramer. I'm not sure that you
I wasn't there yet.
Yeah, so I was. It's just crazy how this thing was up and down. But
the first big thing that we did is you and I went out to Iowa. So I jump onto the campaign. This is back during the Iowa caucuses, and I was starting to get involved. And you said, "Hey, you want to go out to Iowa to caucus for Trump?" And
I think Margaret recommended it.
Yeah, Margaret, it's her fault. It was her fault.
Go out there. Yeah.
Well, that trip, for example, we go out to Iowa, and this is what I want to tell people about Charles Bookwalter and why I wish to God that he'd been elected, is because everything that could go wrong on that trip went wrong. We're halfway to Iowa. It's a blizzard. It's 30 below zero, and when we hit midway, the heater in the truck goes out. We didn't stop. Right? We get to the hotel, we're frozen, we get checked in, we get the truck into the parking garage, and we can sit back and relax, and we can start talking about what we're going to do tomorrow and so on. And the truck didn't start the next morning.
The diesel froze.
It was too cold. And so that didn't stop us. We found another way to get to where we needed to get and get the things done that needed to get done while we were there. And then eventually meeting with Vivek Ramaswamy and caucusing for Trump.
Yeah, and literally being a Trump caucus captain.
Yep.
And going through the process and reading the booklet and that what they recommended you might want to say or whatever. But they said you can say whatever you want. So we got our few minutes to caucus for Trump. Yeah, it was a great experience. It was a lot of fun and.
Well, the green beret experience.
Attitude. What are you going to do? The one thing that I wish I'd known at a younger age, and I really only learned at group, and I had to learn this at group, going through training through the process, is no one likes someone that's going to complain when times are tough. When times are tough, we all know they're tough.
Right.
So if you got someone complaining about it, you're like, thanks a lot, dude. Thanks for stating the obvious. That already sucks, okay?
Right.
It already sucks. We all know it. So, it's much easier to, have a smile on your face and knowing that you're going to persevere is going to work out. So when you don't want to get out on the other side and look back and think, wow, I really didn't handle that well. Or you look back, you're like, yeah, whatever, man. It is what it is.
It is what it is. That's it. You can't, not crying over spilt milk is in a political campaign is an awesome trait to have. And that's what I was saying, that when I joined the campaign, I came in and I was reluctant initially to get involved in another campaign because I've been in over 100 of them. And in the process of doing that, you get jaded. And I don't blow smoke up people's tail ends. I definitely won't do it to you. And I'm telling you, this was the most enjoyable campaign. By the way, the only campaign I've ever worked on that I didn't get paid for.
Yeah, sorry.
Right? Didn't make a dime on this campaign, but it was that important to me that Jim Baird get removed. And sadly, too many people believe the narrative of the kind old farmer that comes onto your property and tells you, I'm going to go to D.C. and fight for you. He's got a kind, elderly old voice, and he sounds believable, but his track record shows just the opposite. And some people will say, well, that's just sour grapes. You're upset that you lost. Doesn't change his votes. It doesn't change what he did. What he did is still harmful.
No, or the overlying fact that Republicans right now, both the Indiana State House and the federal government, are complicit in what is going on as they go after these federal dollars and subsidies. This is the problem. This is what the problem is. These guys, these elected officials are bringing this in, and Sharon Neagle lost her seat over this whole issue.
Yep.
And if with more light on this issue and more name recognition from candidates like myself and others, these other establishment guys will get knocked off again and again, because that we don't like them going after this federal money. They admit that's what it is. We all know that's what it is. It's kind of like the ambassadors from other countries saying, well, no, Americans, this, you guys giving us all this money is great because we're buying missiles from you. We're looking at them saying, no, we know that's what's happening, and that's what we don't want to happen. And it's the same thing for these Republicans in our own backyard. Like, we know what's going on, and we don't want it to happen, So,
well, I thought it was interesting. I think that maybe the nail in the coffin for Nagel was that Carroll County we were in at the courthouse? Or is that where they showed up? She showed up. Matt Commons, this is where the crowd where you spoke. Fountain County. In Fountain County, the one question, she was willing to answer any question. She had all the answers that night, except for the most important one. Are you taking any contributions from wind and solar? I don't know. I get so many contributions. There's no way I could tell. Charles, not to poo-poo on Sharon Nagel. I'm using her as an example, but these are all politicians. In your campaign, did you know who your big contributors were?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still do.
I still do too. And mine I did. I ran for Boone County Council. I didn't talk about it on here, but I was running for Boone County Council at large. I knew every dollar that came in.
Yeah, me too.
So these answers from these politicians, they seem disingenuous, and people it's not lies. They're trying to avert answering the question.
Mm-hmm. They know. They look at that stuff. Believe me, they're looking at it to see how much money's coming in. When I asked a candidate a while ago about their campaign contributions, someone reported some high numbers, and I called them and asked them, like, hey, and when they didn't have a clear answer, I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. I know every single one that comes through. I would think any candidate would pretty much know what's coming through, because, it's important.
Well, you're keeping an eye on it on a daily basis to see where you are.
Yeah, right. We're managing this whole thing. And so, yeah, I'm sure candidates know as well. And that's the problem. That's what we're leveling at. They're like, yes, you care. And the money's like 5,000 from Big Farm, this company, and 5,000 from Big Sugar, and then 10,000 from Big Ag, and 10. So, yeah, they know where the money's coming from. Yeah.
Well, that's why he shows up at the places he shows up, to shake hands and get on camera with Bo, right? Is to be able to talk, tell everybody, look where I am. I'm over here at this big place and they support me. You should support me too. That's all it is, right? It's branding and marketing. That's all this is. And when you understand that branding and marketing have nothing to do with the product whatsoever, maybe you'll open your eyes. I mean, that's what we've been trying to tell people, is that they're saying one thing and doing another. No different than Baird's vote for the $1.2 trillion spending bill that he lied to the people of the Fourth about. He lied to us. Jim Baird is a liar.
This is what I mean by it's frightening, because so many people aren't showing up to vote. And we also heard from so many people that I think there's just a lot of people that don't trust the system, and they're like, I don't care anymore. Many people told me, I am only going to vote because you are running. Otherwise, they would not. They've already given up on this system. They've quit. And so that is something else that these elected representatives, they don't get, they don't understand. There's a lot of, underground anger and disappointment in this elected class that's supposed to be representing the people, and that's not what's happening. It's not what's happening. And so it doesn't make me feel that we're any closer or better after this election cycle. It just makes me think that we have to work so much harder and stay focused and just work within the system and keep doing what we're doing, because I think we made some progress. So we got to stay in touch with each other. These networks, this is what this was all about. Everyone knows it. No one should be disappointed. No, if you didn't win, then you shouldn't be disappointed, because others did, and this is part of the process, and you just have to stay committed, and you never, never, never give up.
Yep. I think that's true. That's true.
And here's another thing, 'cause I don't know how long we're going to go tonight. I don't have that much prepared to talk about, but, just thinking about the next day, I didn't have my phone on me. I think Bev and I got up and we worked in the garden that morning of, and then that day was nice. And I took my 2 beehives, one swarmed, I caught the swarm, and then I split queens into 7. So I had 7. So I split all my bees, and then I went to jiu-jitsu with the girls that night and did jiu-jitsu. And then Thursday, I did more gardening, and then went to Jimmy John's. And and this is a rewarding lifestyle. What we do is we keep working and we keep focusing on the things that we should be focusing on anyway. Your community, your business, building some kind of a sustainable lifestyle, homesteading, so self-defense, doing jujitsu. But always, I need to call Scott Wheeling and schedule another shooting course. But these are all the things. Everyone should go to Briggs Core Dynamic and sign up for some shooting course and training courses and a medical course and a TCCC course or whatever it's called now. And don't lose focus, because again, I'm not being a pessimist. I'm optimistic ultimately, but I don't think this next group of leadership is going to have much of a change of what I see coming, needing to be prepared for, to protect.
Charles, over the weekend on CNN, they were talking about the fact that Biden's behind, Trump's going to win, and we're just all waiting for what big event happens next. That was on CNN over the weekend. Everyone knows there's a black swan kind of event going to come across this country in the next 6 months.
But is it going to be before the election, or is it they're going to let the election go? Like maybe they encourage it to go to Trump and then drop the black swan.
That's what I would do. But regardless, it doesn't matter. It's going to happen. And if you're folks, listen,
you got to be prepared.
That's it right there. I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optimist. I hope for the best and I prepare for the worst. That is not crazy to talk about. When you're looking in 2019, I did not talk about being a prepper at all. I didn't talk about knowing how to own a fire, or how to operate a firearm. I didn't talk about how to sight in a gun. I didn't talk about how to grow food. I wasn't worried about any of that stuff. Today I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I see all of these issues on the horizon. The violence that we're seeing on college campuses, they're all done in the next week or so. They're going to go back into their home communities and spread this bullshit everywhere.
Oh gosh.
So we've got
and look. I'm not a pessimist either. If I was a pessimist, I wouldn't, own a Jimmy John's or try to lease out our commercial real estate, or I wouldn't be looking for business opportunities and looking where to invest and stuff like this in local communities. So I'm not a pessimist either. I think this is what we need to be doing is engaging is prepping and being an optimist, right? But in good measures of both.
Having a spare tire in your trunk doesn't make you a pessimist. It makes you prepared.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Being prepared, and So.
What do you think are the biggest?
Using our skill sets, look like you've got such an incredible skill set. Looking for opportunities to use this skill set for the conservative movement. And everyone else is doing that at home. If you're, if you are in homesteading or farming, raising, produce, or focusing on what you're good at in this next election cycle as we continue to build, and you run for prison committee the next time, or county council, or whatever it may be, as we all continue to, push for a more conservative lifestyle and protecting our conservative area. And really what it is just speaking objective truths. Okay.
Right. Yep.
Just speaking the truth, on a regular basis, and not having this DEI stuff or any of this crazy stuff that a lot of us, we need to speak out against loudly and not be afraid to be called racist and misogynist and all that. Because now, Kramer, you guys have no idea. If you looked at some of these messages and DMs that I've got and voicemails I've got with the names I've been called, it's just, and anyone that knows me, it's just crazy talk. What they'll call you.
Well, the death threat. You had a death threat against you.
Right. Yeah. Because of a position that they don't even understand that well, and takes so. Okay, and being a follower of Christ, I don't hate anybody. It's just an insane thing for someone to even say. But anyway.
Well, we're in a situation in the nation that is not going to get any better unless people get involved. And as we just saw in the primary, people would rather complain but stay comfortable. We're not in a bad situation in this country yet. Everybody thinks it's bad. It ain't bad yet. I've got a friend in Africa that says you're still living the high life. Even your poorest in this nation is one of the top 1% of earners in the world. So when people say the 1%, the 1%, the 1%, they're forgetting that they're a 1%er on the world scale.
Of course, yeah. Like they would, like King Solomon, the wisest and richest man in the world, would look at us, the ancient time would look at us and think, wow, you guys can control the temperature of your room at all times. Right. You have refrigeration and running water. You can flush your feces down the septic system. Wow, that's incredible. I would give up all my wealth to live in a life like that.
Yep.
So yeah.
It's all perspective, it's context, and people don't pay enough attention to it. Charles, I want to point out again that if you look at what your campaign did in a year, is that if nothing else, it made Jim Baird stop voting for the trash bills that he was voting for. Well, to an extent, because he still voted with Biden.
But I'm afraid that that won't last long.
No, it won't.
I don't think that'll last long, and we'll continue to watch it. And I'll be obviously I'm going to watch this. I'm going to continue. So everyone wants to know what my next steps are. Well, my next steps are to fulfill my responsibilities as a precinct committeeman, a delegate within the party, and continue to recruit, train, and work with people in the party in the 4th District to get elected and stay involved in these important issues because they're happening all around us, and we need some voices to speak out about things like this green energy policy, and then train jujitsu and build the business and serve the community. That's what we do in the interim. In the meantime,
let's see here. It says Patricia Cole put the following. I am currently looking for people in the Indiana State House Representative District 38 to run as independent conservative. Deadline is June 30th to run against Heath Van Adder. Also looking for grassroots conservative people to run for Carroll and Delphi School Board. Deadline is June 30th. PM me for information. So Patricia Cole on Facebook. That's what we're talking about, is looking at opportunities. If you can't get here, then get here. You've got to have... You've got to be involved, and that's been my message for the last 4 years. I didn't talk about it much on the lives that we did, but I have a substantial social media following, and I've been preaching the same exact message for the last 4 years. Get involved or take a knee. You're either going to be a warrior or a slave. There's no choice. There's no line. There's no gray line where you can live in between. They're telling you what they're going to do. Both Republicans, Democrats, the global elites, they're telling you what's going to happen next. You should listen to them. When people tell you that they're going to do this with your life and they have immense power, you should listen. And when people are telling you, I'm going to stand up against them, I'm not going to allow this to happen in my community, you must support them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. And someone brought up to me today that where we are, like in terms of what this is like in terms of the revolution. There was just like a third of the people, and I think they may put saying in relation to the number of votes we brought in, about a third, and they're like, well, that was the same thing. There were a third of people that wanted to break away from Britain, and there were a third that were Tories, and then there was the third in the middle, and that's the gray line that you're talking about, right, where there won't be a gray line. You're gonna go one way or the other. As this continues to shake out, you're gonna be a Tory or you're gonna be an American, or however we're looking at it. But there is no doubt there is a major divide in the Republican Party. Yeah. There is a large and vocal conservative element that is underrepresented. And again, that's the disappointing thing about Mike Braun doing that and not reaching out to the conservative candidate in Micah Beckwith. That's very concerning. You will have to make a choice as time, as we get closer and closer to this inevitability, which is some kind of shakeup.
Well, I'm looking at the 24 election.
He did laugh.
I think it's we're in a world of hurt. We're being led by a dementia patient, right? Our only real choice for president is Trump, and I'm not saying that negatively. It's a positive thing, but he's another older man.
Yeah.
Right.
I know. I mean, look, you got a MAGA shirt on. You've always been Trump. Yeah, but that is that's what I mean by I'm not sure how well Republicans are going to do in this election, because they're not being inspired by like a young conservative, president, and it's Joe Biden, and like once again it's going to be like, oh my good. So it's nuts. It is nuts what we're about to.
I know. Well, I was going through today. I wrote a diatribe on Twitter that took off, and it put a lot of things in context. The liars, the people that we've been listening to for the last several years, are ramping up to tell us lies again for another election. It's election season. The violence we didn't have violence on campuses or anywhere in the streets like this for 3 years.
Yeah. Yep.
And all of a sudden it's election season and let's go out and let's start picketing. See, I don't think it's going to happen this year.
No one was picketing before October 7th for Palestinian rights or Hamas. And it was bad before October 7th. Yep. Before they did anything. There was no one in the States here on October 6th and, whatever their chant is, before Hamas attacked Israel.
Yep.
Yeah.
The question I ask of everybody watching and anyone that will see this, if you've been bitching and moaning about how bad things are, but you didn't vote in the primary, shut up. If you're bitching and moaning about how high prices are and inflation out of control, but you don't get involved, shut up. We're tired of hearing from you. It's no different than what you said, Charles, just a few minutes ago. It's bad. You just, what is it? What is it? You enjoy the suck or whatever that's called. What's the phrase?
Embrace the suck.
Yeah, embrace the suck. Embrace the suck. Well, when I've embraced the suck and I'm working toward getting out of the suck and I've got somebody next to me saying, it's never going to stop, it's never going to stop, it's never going to stop, they're the person so busy talking and complaining that they're not doing any work. They're useless to us. I have no use for these people. And the question that I've been asking.
That might be the new question every time someone complains. Be like, oh, so you're concerned with that. What are you doing what are you doing in your local community to help us fix that? Because I agree with you. That is a concern. But right now we're fighting this, and this, but we need someone to fight that. Yep. How are you doing it?
Well, that's the question that I ask is very clearly, how hard are you willing to fight against the people that are working to destroy this nation? When are you going to stand up and fight just as hard as they are? When are you going to do that? And I had, of course, I did it in a video form. So somebody comes on and they said, well, you're talking about you. You're calling us out. What are you doing? I'm glad you asked.
Yes, you ran for office.
I ran for office.
You dedicated all your time to multiple campaigns.
I went to the border to check it out, right?
Yeah.
For those that don't know.
You caucused for Trump.
Caucus for Trump in a blizzard. So, I was one of the key figures. The guy, if you're familiar with Patrice Cullors, who's one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, I got her dethroned. It was what we did, exposing what she was doing, the money laundering that she was doing. I've been fighting to free the Uyghurs out of China for 4 years. So, yeah, I'm involved. I can tell you exactly what I'm doing because it's every day. Charles, you're the same way. During the campaign, what did you get done today? I went to this meeting. I did this call. I've had this call. We had to get this sign ready. We had to do this. Every day it was doing something, moving the ball forward. And now I told my wife, Mary, I said, it seems so strange. I said, I haven't heard anything from Charles since Tuesday, right? I haven't talked to Mike. I haven't talked to Tim. I haven't talked to anybody else on the team because the mission that we were all on is kind of now, that part of it is done. Now it's regrouping and coming back together and saying, what's our next initiative? I think that one of the things that we should really take a look at is what's going on in Lebanon with these schools. And we should start looking at our schools here in the 4th District, in Boone County, Morgan County, Fountain County, White County, Carroll County, Tippecanoe County, and looking at our schools and finding out if we've got any more children that are going through what was happening in Lebanon. Right? You've got this young lady.
Absolutely. Because it's happening right now in Boone County in Lebanon.
Right. So
another would be the property tax issue. I think that has to be addressed. Hoosiers are upset about this. And what a perfect time. I kept talking about this. They are buying 11,000 acres with IEDC money. They're talking about having $2 billion a year for the IEDC. Well, that's taxpayer dollars. Like we could get that. You could not raise our property taxes and offset it. Like there's ways of doing this. It's so frustrating that there are ways of doing this. There are ways of fixing it, but that it is not. They are not going to do it. And the people that are so upset about this just keep voting.
They're not
the same
upset,
time.
Charles. They're upset about having to pay more. They don't understand that it's their voting that got them there. I was on the doorstep of a man, and he was complaining. Well, first of all, I brought up the LEAP project, and he said, "Well, I'm all for that. We need progress." And I said, "Well, but you're paying for it. It's our tax dollars. Yeah, every once in a while, these companies need a bump so that they can, give us progress. Really, Ford didn't need that. Chrysler didn't need that." Right?
Yeah. They've hoodwinked. These big government Republicans have hoodwinked a wing of the Republican Party into thinking that the government is theirs to use the way they want it to use and to help the industries that they think are the industries they should help. And that is the biggest opposition over the years from the progressive era on is the America Firsters back in the day said this. Republicans don't give in to this temptation. To use this power of this government to benefit your friends and yourselves and the party and all that, and they didn't listen. And this is what you get. And now things are crumbling around us. There's things that are going on, and our local governments aren't concerned with fixing the roads or doing these other things. They're concerned with economic development, like where can they give these tax abatements, and what project can they build over here, and how they've lost sight of the focus of all the things that they've convinced us that we need them for in the first place, roads and fire and all this stuff. And then when things go out, they're like, "Hey, we need to raise these." Well, you don't want good ambulance services and good police. We're like, wait, you promised these things for generations and generations and generations. No, you've become lost and focused on something that you were never intended to do in the first place.
Right.
And everything else is kind of fallen by the wayside.
Well, and it just tells you people are ignorant as to the way the system works. They think they've got an understanding of it, but they have no concept of how incestuous and how corrupt all of it is. And when you get into it and you start really looking at it, you see the signs over and over and over again. And the same things that were going on in 1775 are happening right now in this country. Mm-hmm. You and I have talked about it, that one of the issues or one of the ways to look at it is that the revolution was more of a civil war than it was a revolution. It was a group of citizens that said, "Hey, listen, we want our rights back," because Americans in the colonies were not being treated the same as Londoners or other British citizens.
Englishmen. They're like, "Hey, we got the same rights as Englishmen. We're Englishmen. We get the same rights, but you guys are taxing us on things that you don't tax Englishmen on your own country. Like this, what's going on?" And it's the same concept. Americans are like, "Wait a second, what's going on?" Our grandparents, now it's so close to home. Like our grandparents and great grandparents had all these freedoms and all of these rights. And we look at ourselves now and the future and what they're trying to build around us, managing this economy. And it's frightening.
Well, what's interesting is that if you look at it, because people in their brains, they get this big image of what everything is. And my specialty is getting things back down to lowest common denominator. Right? Because that's easiest to understand for people. During your campaign, I told you, don't go into Keynesian, economics. People don't understand what that is. Talk to them about things that they relate to, right?
Austrian economics.
Austrian economics is the getting it down to lowest common denominator so they understand it. And what I mean by that is, for example, this guy that was all for the LEAP project, then 5 minutes later, he turns around and says, "But my property taxes have gone up. They've doubled." And I laughed. Yeah. And I said, well, the reason is because this company over here doesn't have to pay for anything of the infrastructure that they're requiring for this new place. That progress that you want, you got to pay for it, buddy. That's how it works. That's how the system works. Yeah. And it hasn't changed since 1775 in this nation.
Yeah, it's just more. And everyone knows our property taxes go to school and in these schools. And what I just ask Democrats, look around you. You're getting everything you want every time that the schools don't come through. They just ask for more money. So they're going to get more money as property taxes go up more and more and more. And what what do Democrats not like about the IEDC? I mean, this is perfect social planning. This is central planning. It's just that Democrats they're not in charge. So they don't get to decide who they want to pay off in their little industry. So healthcare is completely run by the government.
Yep.
Democrats, as they look around, like, who do they think they are, acting like Indiana is behind the times? It's crazy. Like, we have a kid in a Lebanon school that is a boy, is calling himself a girl and beating up girls, and there's nothing going on about it. Like, it should be like, that should never happen. That kid should be kicked out, never to return. You're on your own. You're not going to disrupt our schools like that. Whether they're notwithstanding the mental problems, right? That can't happen. Troublemakers can't be in schools. They need to be kicked out of school to save it for right. It's for the best, for the common good, right? That's what they always say. It's for the common good. But yeah, I mean, these situations are out of control.
Well, and it comes down to, Charles, and you and I have talked about it a lot. It comes down to people not having the character or the backbone to stand up for the objective truth. There's a new video that came out of a Canadian minister, and he's in a debate, and they ask him the simplest question ever: define a woman. And he can't answer it because he knows if he answers it, he'll get canceled, that he won't get elected by the people that supposedly support him, because he's going to tell an objective truth. If he tells the truth, he doesn't get elected.
Yeah. He can't say a biological female.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a bridge too far. And so that's where we're at. It's crazy that when you look at how we're aligned right now with, again, 1775. I go back and watch any period piece from the 1770s, that era, and what you'll see, especially in France and Great Britain, not so much the U.S. because we didn't have the means, and we didn't have the fabrics, and we didn't have the fashion. But if you go to France and you look at France and you look at Great Britain, they were both nations at the peak. They were peaking, right? They were on their last leg. When we said no, that was the downturn for Great Britain. Shortly after our revolution, the French had theirs. So that was one of those turnings. There was an upheaval on the planet. And what the French were doing is they were spending so much money trying to beat Great Britain and keep their ships at sea and keep their forts, and all the locations around Western Europe where they had them, and in India and so on. And Great Britain, they were doing the same thing. And what did they start doing, Charles?
They were taxing Americans.
They were taxing Americans, and they were printing money like this. They were creating fake wealth so that they could seem like they were growing. Well, it's no different than today. Our economic system is on the same brink, and it's been 250 years, which is about the max a nation lasts, if it doesn't abide by conservative principles. Don't spend more than you bring in, don't overtax, and don't criminalize your people. Let them speak freely. Let them own guns.
I spoke with someone today, and they said that she was speaking with a young voter that came out and said that they came out and voted only because this person had reminded them to go vote. And they said, well, why? What can we do to get young people like you more engaged? And he said, the reason no one's engaged my age is because we realize that this is a losing battle. We're $35 trillion in debt, and we're never going to get out of it. This is what, she said, a 20-something-year-old said. And I'm like, well, look, it's not just 20-year-olds that are saying
right.
That it's of all generation, but it's interesting that a 20-year-old would. It was probably a homeschooled 20-year-old is my guess. It was a homeschooled 20-year-old.
Well,
that would be that astute, but that is what we're facing, this mountain of debt. I remember my dad talking about it when I was a kid. And so this is not sustainable. Like you said, $35 trillion in debt and $1 trillion a year. That's going to become more and more. And then, like they said, by 2050, that 50% of the payments of the United States will be towards the interest on that, not on principal. The first time this is ever going to happen, as high as it's ever been in the history of the United States, including World War II, where the United States really printed a lot of money to pay for World War II, and the spike is huge.
Yep.
But they paid it off really quickly, and there was no interest payments on it. Yep. And then, but this is completely different. What's happened in the last few years?
Well, there were two pieces. During the weekend before the election, we ran a series of videos on social media. And one was Ron Paul talking about the Fed and how dangerous what the Fed was doing. That was in 2009. We ran a speech that I thought was very... I thought people would really be engaged with it. They were, but they didn't vote accordingly, apparently. But was Ronald Reagan speaking in 1964 at a Barry Goldwater convention, where he's talking about the issues of that day. And what they were talking about is property rights, the government not coming in and taking your property. He was talking about inflation. By the way, he was upset because they had a $32 billion deficit. That was really concerning to him.
Yeah, $35 trillion.
$35 trillion.
Wow.
Think about that. And we've done that, a lot of that in the last 10 years. With the pandemic, it didn't help. And then they're having, Charles, they're going to have to add, what is it? It's another month, I think, when the spending bill comes back up. So they've got to reissue.
That's why they projected these numbers out at 2050, and they said at 2050 these interest payments. But who would ever have thought when they were projecting the number? So that's however many years, 25 years. And back in 1980, you never would have expected to have the 9/11.
No.
And then the $7 trillion war that followed that. Or back in 2017, you never thought you'd have COVID. Well, some did. Some knew we were going to have COVID. Some knew.
Some knew. A lot of bald guys knew. A lot of bald guys knew.
But those that didn't know never did know that we'd spend however $2 trillion on COVID or $4 trillion, whatever it was. So when they project these numbers out, they're not keeping in mind that there are every decade there's something else that's a bigger.
Well, a great example is Newt Gingrich and that Congress got the contract with America. They balanced the budget, and Democrats like to give Bill Clinton credit for it, right? Just like they like to give Johnson credit for the Civil Rights Act. It was the Republicans who did that. It was the Republicans who balanced the budget. It was the Republicans who gave you the Civil Rights Acts. It wasn't the Democrats. It was us, the racists, the xenophobes. Right? We gave those rights. We said, no, you should be able to do exactly what we do. We don't agree with these guys over here. The guys that used to own your grandmother, we don't agree with those people. And then we got the balanced budget in the 90s, and Bill Clinton balanced the budget. They believe that. But the budget was never balanced. It never happened. They began spending immediately again. And then we had 9/11. And by the time we had 9/11, we were off to the races. Since 9/11, we have been spending and destroying our nation like crazy. And it's the same group of people who have been in charge of this country my entire life. The Bushes, the boomers.
Yep. Then the tech bubble.
Yep.
And then the real estate bubble of 2008, and they printed, and that began QE.
Yep.
And once QE started, there were some economists that said, you start QE, you'll never stop. You can never stop once you start making money easy. That you're going to need to continue to, it's like a bad drug. It's like an opioid or heroin, that you can never just pull yourself off of this. And this is being proven right now as they're struggling with, are they going to keep rates the same? And or are they going to lower them? But they realize they have to admit that inflation is still roaring, which it is. Yep. And they need to keep rates the same, if not raise them. But they're not going to be willing to do it because they need, I think that then they need to make money easy again to lift the economy. That's what they think. Right. But in reality, inflation already is still so high. And so they're going to lower interest rates because I think that's what they think they need to do. And people are going to start borrowing money again. And it may have a temporary it'll be like a dead cat bounce. It'll be up and then dead. And then that might be it as they just further inflate, money. But I could be wrong. But what they need to do is let interest rates stay the same or go higher. I mean, interest rates should be higher.
Well, interest rates when my mom and dad bought their home in 1980 was 18%.
Yeah, I remember those numbers. Paul Volcker gets a lot of credit for raising interest rates and fighting. It was a tough political battle to do it, but he knew what needed to be happen. But back then, they also didn't have this much debt. So that is the one thing that they're juggling that Paul Volcker didn't have was this debt that changes so frequently that these high interest rates would actually have an impact on the U.S. ability to pay these notes that are being borrowed at this higher and higher and higher rates. And they can't. So back then, Paul Volcker didn't have to pay 18% the way that the U.S. government would have to pay on these higher interest rates if they went up.
Well, there was another video that we ran during the weekend special where it described exactly what's been happening over the last 80, 90 years, but it goes back almost 500. It's a piece by Ray Dalio, and it showcases, it's called The Principles of Dealing with a Changing World, I think is the name of it. But if you search Ray Dalio on YouTube, you can find it. It's about 45 minutes long, and it's one of the best, most common sense, lowest common denominator explanations of the situation that we're in by a multi-billionaire hedge fund manager who's telling you it's all screwed. It's rigged. None of it's real. It's all fake. And every one of them, history shows, collapses. And what's interesting to me is that Powell and the rest of them are like the people who are crying for communism and socialism right now. They're going to the streets saying death to America because if we get our hands on it, we'll do it right. But they've already proven they can't be trusted because the first thing that they have to do is silence dissent. That's the first thing you have to do. I don't want to be in a socialist nation. So they got to silence me. They got to silence you. That's the first thing that they do.
Yeah. Like when people love freedom say, hey, you can have your system in our government. You just can't enforce it on us. You can go start a commune in Montana or Wyoming.
Knock yourselves out.
You can do that all you want. But
the Amish are doing it already.
Again?
The Amish are doing it already. Yeah. They don't rely on the government and so on. It was one of the other things that's been said a lot, and I'm sure that you've heard it, is that I continue to tell people to stand and fight. And when I say that, I don't mean go into the streets and blow people up. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is standing up and making your voice heard and saying, I'm not doing that. I refuse to comply. And by the way, I'm going to dissent as well. I'm going to tell everybody that I know that you're a scumbag and that your policies are scumbaggish, right?
Yeah, and that's stupid, and I'm not doing that. That was like, here's an example. It was like, I'm a swimmer. I've been a swimmer my whole life. I love to swim. I swam up until COVID in the YMCA, but I finally had to cancel my membership because I was done telling them this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. They would try to, I didn't do it. I had to sign a waiver every time I walked into that YMCA because you had to wear a mask from the door to the locker room. But inside the locker room, you could take your mask off.
No germs in the locker room.
And inside the weight room, and then you had to put it on to cross the hall. And then when you went into the locker room, or the weight room, which is huge and it's all connected, there's not any walls in it. No one had to wear a mask. So you could be right next to this old guy, breathing hard in doing weights next to him. But when you walked out in the hallway, you had to put a mask on. And I said, I'm not doing this. I'm absolutely not going to do this. Like, you got to do it. I'm like, I'm not. Then you got to sign this waiver. So every time I went in there with my daughters, I'd have to sign their stupid waiver, and I'd have to tell them, no, I'm not putting a mask on. And I would even, the person like, do you see, like, this is ridiculous, So that's the point. You have to stand up and say, and speak up about this kind of stuff to other people.
You have to be loud about it. It's one of those things.
I dropped my membership. And so I finally was like, I'm not doing this anymore. They handled COVID horribly. It's the stupidest stuff I'd ever seen in a workout facility where people are healthy and need to go to be healthy. They were not promoting healthy activities. They were doing what they were told. I was frustrated.
Well, Charles, we've got a long road to hoe. There's a lot of work still to be done, and we're still asking people to join in the fight that we're in. If we don't fight this way, if we don't stand this way, we will be in the streets defending ourselves. That is not hyperbole. You've already seen what these college students and others are calling for. There's a group of people in this nation that hate this country for no other reason than they feel that they've gotten ripped off or gypped. That's it. They live in the greatest nation on the face of the earth. Nobody is clamoring to go anywhere else on the planet but right here in America. Why do you think that opening the border has caused such a problem? We're so racist and so xenophobic that these people can't wait to get up here and be with us racists and xenophobes. That's how good this country is. Still, as bad as it is, we're still the best nation on the face of the earth. And people will counter that and they'll say, well, this dynamic here, this study here, I don't care. Here you have opportunity. I give an example. Personal testimony is that I haven't worked in 4 years. I haven't made a dime in 4 years. Nothing. Because this is so important to me. We're burning through our savings because this is so important to me. I have a building, a commercial building that I'm at the doorstep of losing because this is more important than that building is. My wife's all upset. Well, we're going to lose all the money in the building. I don't care. That's water underneath the bridge. I don't care at this point. We are at the doorstep of revolution or civil war in this nation for one simple reason, because of complacency. People expecting other people to defend their rights and freedoms. Oh, I don't have to go vote. Somebody else will go do it for me. They're called individual rights for a reason. You have to defend them with your life. That's not hyperbole, Charles.
Yeah.
That's what I understand. You know, on this diatribe that I wrote on Twitter, X, formerly Twitter, is that my love for this nation isn't because I'm a white man. It's because I was born here. And what I realize is that I have more opportunities here than I do at anywhere else on the planet. There's nowhere else on the planet that I can go and do what I can do here. And I haven't worked in 4 years. But because of the work that I've been doing, I'm now being offered positions and being looked at the top levels of this nation because of what I've been doing for the last 4 years. The commitment, the hours of working. Charles, you know, knocking doors is not fun. Right? It's arduous, man. You're out there in the heat, or out there in the cold, or out there in the rain, and you're knocking on doors, and then you get doors slammed in your face.
The opportunity cost.
Right.
There's an opportunity cost there.
You pay into the system by the work that you do. And that's why when I jumped into this campaign, when I saw what was already working, the methodologies you already had in place, the systems that you already had in place, I was like going, geez, you're so far ahead of these other campaigns. This is going to be an easy one. And again, I was wrong. I thought that we could easily beat Jim Baird because people would be upset and they would vote for anybody but the incumbent, but they're not. They're complacent. They're fine with the way things are. And the day that this happens, I'm going to close up with this, the day that this happens, and I've been talking about it for a long time on my podcast and my social media content. It's a cascade effect. Nothing and then everything. October 7th is a great example. There were people that got up that morning, went and had their breakfast, went to work, went to the park, whatever they were. They never expected to be attacked that day. That's how fast it happens. Likewise, the people in Gaza weren't expecting what Israel did. It happened in a heartbeat. The same thing that's going on in Rafah right now. That's how fast it changes. And my call has been to be prepared. I don't want it to happen. I expect it to happen. But I'm prepared for it. And that was your message as well. Not that dire and not that, but we have tough days in front of us. Anyone who thinks that the Trump presidency, everybody's, when Trump comes in, it's not going to get fixed. Do you remember what happened from 16 to 20? What's going to happen from 24 to 28?
Russia collusion. That's what happened from 16 to 20.
Yep. They lied. It was all lies.
Lied for 4 years.
Yep. And here's the other problem, is not enough Republicans stood up and stood their ground when people were talking bad about what was going on.
And here's one of the biggest things I learned in this 1 year. It is a game to a lot of these people.
Yep.
It is just a game.
Yep.
And they don't really care. They care about their political future or that of their nephew or cousin or uncle or dad or whatever. But it is a game very much. Some of these people are very petty, and they don't really care about what people like us care about. And you can tell. And
well, they don't care about freedom and liberty because they're in a position to where it doesn't matter to them. They're in control. They have, they get things swept underneath the rug for them. Look at what happened with Hunter Biden. And I'm using him as an example, but this happens on the left and on the right. That Hunter Biden was going to be given a cushy deal that if you and I had been caught with the same exact paraphernalia or guns or drugs on us, there would have been no question we would have gone to jail. There would have been no special deal.
And we'd lose all of our assets probably. Yep. Yeah, it's a scam, man. It is. It's a scam, but we can't stop fighting.
That's it.
But that being said, I just want to close on this. Like, and Kramer goes for you. It goes for so many people. This is not over at all by any stretch. I mean, we are still working on so many things, and now looking at to the convention in June, and figuring out where we stand, and just looking at everything as the primaries just ended, and we keep moving forward. So no one should do any different. Just keep moving forward. And I'm so grateful for everyone's help and support in the campaign. Again, under the umbrella of this campaign, we were able to do a lot of things. Some people all over in the district, maybe they didn't win here in their pockets, but we did make progress all over in the district. So, it's a long fight. Again, like I said, that when I opened up, if you think that just 2 years ago, 60%, or 4 years ago is what it was, 4 years ago, 60% of these precinct committeemen were appointed. And this year, that's not going to happen. There's precinct committeemen, at least, or the county chairs in the 4th district are not going to be appointing any precinct committeemen. So that's a big deal. That's a 60% swing right there. And then all the other the seats that we've won. So don't be discouraged. And, and life is great. And Jesus is our King. And that's all we need to, just keep doing our best every single day. And like I said at the party the other night, it's something I learned in the training that I got is when you go through this training, you never know if you're going to have to run 10 miles or 2 miles or ruck 5 miles or ruck 20 miles, or if you're going to be up for one day and sleep, or if you're going to be up for 3 days. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to sleep for 15 minutes or sleep for a few hours. But not knowing, you just have to do your best all the time, no matter what you're doing. And you never know if this iteration or this point in your life, it's going to be a marathon or it's going to be a sprint. But you just got to keep that meter at however level you can keep it, where you can keep that momentum and keep going for as long as you can without stopping, without quitting. So that's what we're going to do. So
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I'm so appreciative of everyone's help, and I'm still calling people and writing cards for all the support we got. So if you haven't heard from me personally, just wait. And of course, you can always call me on the campaign phone if you want to catch up. So thanks again, and we'll just keep. This is not the last you'll hear from either of us.
I appreciate it. That's it. That's all I've got as well.
Yeah.
So God bless. Let me wrap up by saying this. Charles, I'm so glad that I met you in Springfield. We met in Springfield, Missouri at an event. It's been an honor working with your campaign, and I've never said that to anybody ever. So and I've worked on over 100 campaigns. That tells you a lot. So with that being said, I think we're out of here. Until next time.
Thank you for watching the Charles Bookwalter Digital Town Hall. For more information about Charles Bookwalter and the Bookwalter for Congress campaign, visit bookwalterforcongress.com.